There's a reason some people speak and the whole room resets. Conversations pause, heads turn, even the quiet ones start listening. They don't yell, they don't beg. They don't need a title, a suit, or a spotlight. Their voice carries weight because their presence tells you one thing: this person leads. And here's the truth most people never hear: leaders aren't defined by authority. They're defined by how they communicate it. The difference between being ignored and being respected is not talent, intelligence, or even confidence. It's how you speak, how you hold a moment, and how you make people feel when your voice hits the air. Most people talk to be heard, leaders speak to be followed. If you can master that, your career changes, your relationships shift, your respect multiplies, and doors that were never for you start opening like they were waiting on your voice to knock. This podcast isn't about sounding fancy, fake, or theatrical. It's about activating the version of you that speaks with clarity, composure, and command, whether you're in a meeting, on a stage, at home, negotiating a deal, or standing in front of someone who doubts you. Over the next 10 chapters, I'm going to show you how to speak in a way that makes people stop scrolling, stop talking, and start paying attention. Not because you forced them to, but because your voice left them no choice. Chapter 1. Presence before words. Before a leader speaks, they've already said something. You can walk into a room completely silent and still make people adjust their energy. That isn't magic. It's not arrogance. It's the byproduct of something most people ignore: presence. Presence is leadership's first language. You can have the right vocabulary, the perfect speech, the smartest ideas. But if your presence doesn't signal strength, your words lose power before they even land. People decide whether to listen to you long before you open your mouth. So let's break this down, because the secret to speaking like a leader begins with the messages you send before a single word is spoken. Your posture announces you. Not stiff, not inflated, not slouched. A leader doesn't try to shrink into the background, and they don't overcompensate by looking aggressive. They stand like they have a right to the space they're in. Shoulders relaxed, spine lifted, feet grounded. Posture is silent confidence, and confidence is contagious. When posture is weak, the voice follows. When posture is grounded, the voice carries weight before it's even heard. Your face speaks too. You don't need a smile to look approachable, and you don't need a frown to look serious. Leaders don't plaster expressions on their faces to win approval. They rest in calm neutrality. They don't blink too fast. They don't flinch at every sound. They don't scan the room like they're hoping to be accepted. Their stillness tells people, "I'm not nervous about being seen." Eye contact sets the tone. Most people either stare too intensely out of insecurity or avoid eye contact altogether. Leadership eye contact is neither. It's steady, intentional, present. It doesn't chase reactions. It meets people where they are and holds them there without apology. Look someone in the eye when you speak, not to dominate, but to connect. Leaders don't hide their gaze, they use it to anchor attention. Your breathing controls the space. Anxious speakers rush. Confident communicators breathe like they own the clock. When your breath is calm, your tone drops into a deeper, controlled space. Your words become measured. People feel like they have time to process you because you feel like you have time to speak. Fast breathing? People hear desperation. Slow breathing? People hear presence. Stillness is power. Fidgeting, adjusting, fussing with clothes, tapping fingers, bouncing feet. These are micro-announcements that you're not settled. But when you move with intention, when your body stops trying to burn nervous energy, your silence becomes heavy in the best way. The right kind of stillness says, "I'm not here to react, I'm here to lead." Now here's something most people never realize. If your silent signals don't align with strength, authority, and groundedness, your words have to overcompensate. And when words overcompensate, they lose authenticity. Think about someone who tries too hard. Maybe they talk too fast. Maybe they drop titles or mention achievements to sound credible. Maybe they laugh too quickly, fill silence unnecessarily, or over-explain their point. All of that comes from weak presence. Leadership communication starts before sound. You can project confidence without saying anything. And when that foundation is set, everything you speak after lands differently. This is not about acting. It's about alignment. When your external signals match internal self-trust, people feel it, even if they don't know why. Humans are wired to read nonverbal cues. We decide who to follow based on how someone makes us feel, not just what they say. So how do you start developing this kind of presence? You don't fake it, you build it. It starts with how you enter spaces. Leaders don't rush into rooms, they don't explode into conversations. They arrive with intention. Sometimes that's a pause at the doorway. Sometimes it's just a slower step. Sometimes it's eye contact before words. Then there's how you stand when you're not speaking. If someone else is talking and you're waiting your turn, your body language is already casting votes on how people will receive your voice. Are you shifting every few seconds? Are your arms crossed out of defense? Are your shoulders tight? Is your chin tucked like you're hoping to disappear? Or are you grounded? Feet planted, shoulders open, breathing steady. Leadership presence is practiced in silence so it can be trusted in speech. Now let's talk about what presence does to emotion. When you feel nervous, your body wants to contract. Shoulders slump. Breath shortens, head dips. You unconsciously try to make yourself smaller. This is a survival instinct, not a leadership instinct. The moment you physically expand your posture, slow your breath, and let stillness settle your body, your nervous system gets a message. We're not under attack, we're in control. Your voice follows that message, so does your thinking. You cannot speak like a leader if your body believes it's hiding from danger. Your presence isn't just for other people, it's for you. To stabilize your emotions, to command your tone, to sharpen your clarity. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine walking into a room and saying nothing for the first 30 seconds. Not awkward silence, intentional silence. You make eye contact. You sit or stand with calm control. You allow the room to feel you before they hear you. That's not arrogance, that's authority. Presence earns attention that words don't have to beg for. So before you worry about how to sound like a leader, focus on how to show up like one. Your leadership begins when you enter, not when you speak. In the next chapter, we move from physical presence into vocal power, how leaders use tone, pace, and rhythm to hold the room without raising their voice. Stay ready. Chapter 2. The Sound of Authority. Long before people decide whether they agree with you, they decide whether to believe you. And belief doesn't start with your message. It starts with your voice. Not the accent you have, not how nice you sound, not how deep or high your pitch is. Authority in speech isn't about genetics. It's about how you use your voice. Let me make this clear. Leaders don't speak to fill silence. They speak to direct energy. They don't rush. They don't ramble. They don't raise their voice to seem powerful. They use tone, pacing, pauses, and vocal weight to make every word feel like it belongs exactly where it landed. Most people speak from habit. Leaders speak with intention. Let's break down the vocal traits that separate background noise from leadership presence. 1. The weight of your tone. You ever hear someone speak and immediately feel they know what they're talking about, even before they finish the sentence? That comes from vocal grounding. A leader's voice doesn't float at the top of the throat, it sits deeper, supported by breath. The tone is rounded, calm and controlled, not sharp and nervous. This doesn't mean you need a deep voice. It means your sound has settled confidence. Even if your pitch is naturally higher, your tone can carry authority if your breath is steady and your delivery isn't tense. When your voice is grounded, you don't sound like you're trying to be heard. You sound like you expect to be listened to. 2. Pacing. Leaders don't race, insecure speakers rush. Leaders don't. They speak at a pace that lets their thoughts land, not collide. They're not trying to reach the end of the sentence, they're taking you through it. When you slow down, 3 things happen. Your voice gains gravity. Your words sound intentional, not accidental. Your listeners have time to absorb, not just hear. Fast speech reads as nervousness, apology, or eagerness for approval. Steady pacing reads as certainty. And when something matters, they pause. 3. The power of the pause. Silence is not the enemy of speech. For a leader, silence is a tool. Most people feel tension when they pause, like someone might interrupt or judge them. Leaders don't rush to fill every gap. They let silence work for them. A pause creates anticipation, signals confidence, gives weight to what came before, prepares people for what comes next. If you can pause without fear, people feel that you're in control of the moment, not scrambling to survive it. 4. Volume without shouting. A leader doesn't get louder to get heard, they get clearer. Authority doesn't yell, it doesn't whine, it doesn't fluctuate wildly, it carries consistency. If you speak from your throat, you'll strain. If you speak from shallow breath, you'll sound tight. But when you breathe from your diaphragm and let sound come through naturally, your words travel without force. People shouldn't feel you're trying to dominate them. They should feel you don't need to. 5. Rhythm, command through flow. Great leaders don't speak in monotone, but they also don't sound chaotic. Their rhythm feels measured, like each sentence is part of a clear structure. Think of it like music. No strong speech is one flat note. Leadership language rises and settles with balance, not dramatics. Certain words land with more weight. Sentences have momentum. The delivery doesn't feel rehearsed, it feels inevitable. Leaders don't perform their voice, they own it. 6. Ending sentences like you meant them, a silent mistake weak speakers make. Their words trail off, climb upward or fade out like they're unsure if they should have spoken at all. Leaders finish their sentences with verbal punctuation, the tone drops or settles, like closing a door, not leaving it swinging open. That tells people, I'm not asking for validation, I'm making a statement. You'd be shocked how much authority is lost simply because someone ends every sentence like a question. 7. Emotional control in delivery. Leaders aren't monotone robots. They use emotion, but they never let emotion control their voice. Anger doesn't make you sound powerful, it makes you sound threatened. Desperation doesn't make you persuasive, it makes you ignorable. Over-enthusiasm can sound like selling rather than leading. Controlled intensity, that's different. When your voice carries calm conviction, even when speaking passionately, people hear trustworthiness, not turbulence. 8. The absence of verbal clutter. Basically, these filler sounds leak insecurity. Leaders don't stuff empty noise between thoughts. When they pause, it's intentional, not accidental. A pause with no words is strong. A pause filled with verbal debris is weakness disguised as speaking. Why all this matters? Your words are judged by your sound before your meaning. If your voice suggests hesitation, apology, or nervousness, people subconsciously devalue what you're saying, no matter how right you are. And here's the painful truth. If your voice betrays insecurity, most people won't correct you, won't encourage you, won't boost you. They'll just decide quietly, you're not someone to follow. Authority in speech is a skill, not a birthright. You don't need to become someone else. You need to command the instrument you already have. How you train this. You don't fix vocal authority by thinking about it. You fix it through practice. Here are simple adjustments that rewire your delivery. Speak from breath, not panic. Slow your pace by 10 to 15%. End sentences like you meant them. Remove filler sounds ruthlessly. Use silence as punctuation. Drop your tone at the end of key statements. Breathe before you answer, not during. Every one of these rewires perception. Leadership voice starts inside. If your internal dialogue is anxious, your external voice will expose it. Leaders don't wait to feel ready. They speak from decision, not insecurity. There's a moment before speaking where weak communicators hope they'll be accepted, and leaders decide they belong. That mental shift is what gives your words backbone. Your voice is not just sound, it's energy, intent, and certainty made audible. In the next chapter, we're moving from sound to words. The language patterns leaders use, the phrases they avoid, and why certain ways of speaking instantly shift power dynamics. You're not here to sound nice. You're here to sound like someone people don't ignore. Chapter 3. Words that carry power. A leader isn't remembered because they talk the most. They're remembered because what they say sticks. Their words don't float away. They don't dissolve into background noise. They have structure, clarity, punch, and direction. And here's the key. It's not about using big vocabulary. It's about using clean, intentional language that guides thought. Most people speak the way they think: cluttered, emotional, uncertain, overly polite, or overly defensive. Leaders speak the way they want to be received: direct, composed, and meaningful. They don't explain themselves into weakness or pad their point with apologies. They choose words like tools, not confessions. Let's break down how leaders shape language that commands respect, and how you can start doing the same. 1. Leaders remove verbal weakness. There are certain patterns of speech that instantly drain authority, not because the content is wrong, but because the delivery signals insecurity. Here are phrases that weaken your message. "I was just wondering." This might sound stupid, but I could be wrong, but does that make sense? I kind of think, "I'm not sure," but every time you soften your message to avoid judgment, you train people not to take you seriously. Leaders don't ask for permission to speak. They don't disclaim their own point before it's made. A leader doesn't say, "I'm not an expert," but they say, "Here's what I see, and here's what I recommend." Notice the difference. One asks to be excused, the other takes responsibility. 2. Precision over wordiness. Weak communicators talk in circles. They arrive at their point only after dragging their listener through a maze of setup. Leaders do the opposite. They get to the point and then build context if needed. They don't start with, "So I've been thinking that maybe, if everyone is okay with it, we could possibly look at." They say, "Here's what needs to happen." Then they clarify. Then they invite feedback, but they don't start from hesitation. Clarity is not aggression, it's respect for time. 3. Statements over explanations. Over-explaining is a symptom of insecurity. When you justify every word, when you pre-answer objections, when you ramble to sound convincing, you broadcast uncertainty. Leaders trust their point enough to say it clean. They don't handhold people into agreement, they present the message, then stand behind it. For example, "I know everyone might have different opinions, and I'm not trying to upset anyone, but I kind of feel like we should maybe rethink the timeline. The current timeline won't get the job done. We need to adjust." One wastes energy, the other leads. 4. The power of declarative language. You can transform authority instantly by shifting from conditional speech to decisive speech. Weak: "I think we should maybe consider starting earlier." Strong: "We're going to start earlier so we finish on time." Weak: "Would it be possible if we tried another approach?" Strong: "Here's a better approach." Weak: "I don't know if this will work, but..." Strong: "Here's the solution I recommend." Your language shows whether you believe what you're saying. And belief is contagious, or absent. 5. Leaders use language to direct, not deflect. A follower asks, "What do you think we should do?" A leader says, "Here's what we're going to do." A follower says, "Maybe we could." A leader says, "This is the move." A follower says, "What if no one agrees?" A leader says, "Agreement comes after clarity." Leadership language doesn't hide behind group approval. It sets the direction and then opens space for collaboration after anchoring the point. 6. Avoiding verbal overload. You don't need 4 paragraphs when 5 words will do. When leaders speak, they don't stuff the sentence with fluff. They cut out the noise. Instead of, "The reason I'm bringing this up is because I've been kind of thinking that if we don't try something different, things might not improve the way we want." A leader says, "This approach isn't working, here's the fix." And guess what? People don't get offended by clarity. They get relieved by it. 7. The balance of confidence and respect. Being direct doesn't mean being dismissive. Leadership speech has conviction without disrespect. It doesn't attack, it doesn't inflate. It doesn't shrink. Tone and phrasing shift based on intent. Not, "You're doing this wrong," but "This approach isn't delivering the results we need. Here's a better direction." Not, "I don't care what you think," but "We're moving forward with this plan. Input is welcome once we're aligned." The goal is leadership, not domination. 8. Using authority phrasing. There are certain phrases leaders use that immediately signal steadiness. "Here's what I've decided." "This is our direction." The priority is, "We're moving forward with," "Let me make this clear. I'll take responsibility for this. Here's what happens next." That's not an option. We're not doing that. Here's what matters right now. Notice, not aggressive, not loud, just certain. 9. Leaders don't hide in vague language. Unclear speech is a mask. When you speak in vague generalities, people feel you avoiding accountability. Strong communicators position their message so there's no confusion. Not, we should maybe try to improve communication a little. Instead, we're going to start giving direct updates twice a week. Not, things could be better. Instead, we're underperforming here, let's fix it. Vagueness protects ego. Clarity protects progress. 10. Emotional neutrality in word choice. Leaders don't let their words leak insecurity or ego. They remove emotional filler from serious points. Instead of, I'm worried people might not like this decision. A leader says, this decision is necessary, they'll adjust. Instead of, I just feel like this isn't fair. A leader says, this approach isn't effective. We need another. Your emotions don't have to vanish. They just don't get to drive your language. Why this all matters. Words are leadership currency. If yours feel hesitant, padded, vague, or apologetic, people will not follow you, even if they like you. Authority isn't about volume, charisma, or flair. It's about certainty delivered cleanly. Clarity makes people feel safe following you. Hesitation makes them quietly dismiss you. And don't forget this. Your voice tone gets interpreted through your word choice. Even the strongest tone collapses if wrapped in weak phrasing. Leadership speech is built, not born. You don't need to overhaul your personality. You need to start choosing language that reflects ownership instead of avoidance. Before Chapter 4, I'll leave you with this shift. Stop speaking to be liked. Start speaking to be understood and remembered. In the next chapter, we'll move into composure under pressure. How leaders speak with authority when the room gets tense, emotional, or uncertain. That's where real communication power begins. Chapter 4. The silence of authority. Listen closely. Real leaders don't fill every moment with noise. They don't speak to prove they're smart, worthy, or dominant. Their presence speaks first. Their silence has gravity. And when they do talk, every word carries intention. Too many people believe leadership communication is about having a comeback for everything, jumping into every discussion, or always being the loudest in the room. That is insecurity disguised as confidence. The greatest communicators, the ones people follow, know the strategic power of silence. When you walk into a room and you're not scrambling to speak, people read that as strength. Why? Because silence says, I don't need to convince you, I don't need to compete for space. I speak when I choose to, not when I'm pressured to. Watch any true leader in a high-stakes boardroom or high-pressure environment. They don't rush answers. They don't react to everything said. They listen, observe, and let others reveal themselves. By the time they speak, they already understand the dynamics, the motives, and the weaknesses in the room. Most people talk fast when they're nervous. Leaders take their time because control over pace signals control over emotion. When you speak too quickly, you give away power. When you speak with calm clarity, you take ownership of the space. Here's something most don't realize. Silence amplifies your words. A short pause before speaking forces attention. A controlled pause after a statement makes it land deeper. That's not hesitation, that's command. Picture this, someone challenges you in a meeting. Instead of rushing to defend or prove something, you look at them calmly. You give it 2 beats. That silence redirects the pressure back onto them. They start to fidget, over-explain, or lose momentum. When you finally speak, the room is waiting. That is leadership without raising your voice. Silence also filters noise. Too many people speak as if every idea needs an instant reaction. A leader listens without interrupting, lets the room play out, and speaks last. Because speaking last isn't about ego. It's about leverage. You get to see what everyone thinks before you reveal your position. But this only works when your body language aligns with your silence. Your posture must be upright but not tense. Your breathing must be steady. Your facial expression must be unbothered. You don't frown, smirk, or glare. You remain unreadable. The less people can read you, the more they must respect you. And don't underestimate eye contact. Not wild staring or forced intensity, just grounding presence. When someone speaks to you and you hold their gaze without reacting, they feel your awareness. They know you heard them, and they know you're not shaken. Another piece of the silence equation: emotional discipline. People who panic, defend themselves, or talk to fill discomfort are signaling weakness. Leaders only speak with purpose, not impulse. If something upsets them, they don't react immediately. They let the silence process the moment, and they respond with precision. There is also confidence in letting others speak more. In conversations, when you ask a question and stay quiet, people feel compelled to fill the space. They reveal more than they planned. They give you insight, leverage, and deeper understanding. You lose nothing by listening. You gain everything. But make no mistake, silence without presence is just absence. The key is active silence. You're not zoning out. You're observing, you're measuring, you're placing weight on your timing. That's what turns silence into influence. Now, let's talk about timing in conversations. If someone interrupts you, you don't rush to talk over them. You wait. You let them finish. Then you return to your point slowly and clearly. That subtle refusal to be thrown off course communicates dominance without aggression. And when someone says something inaccurate, dismissive, or provocative, don't bite right away. Don't argue emotionally. Hold silence, analyze their intent, and then cut cleanly with facts, clarity, or a statement that resets the tone. One controlled sentence hits harder than 10 defensive replies. Here's a mindset shift. Silence isn't the absence of speech. It's the framing of speech. It's the seasoning that gives flavor to your voice. Without pauses, rhythm, and restraint, you sound like everyone else. With them, you sound like someone worth listening to. Think of great speakers: Denzel Washington, Barack Obama, Steve Jobs, Les Brown. None of them rush. They give space between statements. They let silence highlight meaning. You can feel their thoughts before you hear their words. That's leadership energy. And leadership silence isn't rude, it's intentional. But intention requires self-control. The average person is afraid of quiet moments. Leaders are fueled by them. They use silence to show certainty, not hesitation. Even in conflict, silence is a weapon. When someone is trying to provoke you, your silence signals that they hold no power over your emotions. Anger burns fast. Silence burns long. It forces them to react to your lack of reaction. Understand this. The person who stays calm the longest controls the room. So how do you practice the silence of authority? Start by slowing your speech. Don't rush sentences. Leave short pauses instead of filling gaps with or you know. Avoid nervous laughter. Take full breaths before you respond. Train your face to rest in calm neutrality. In group discussions, let others speak first. Listen fully before responding. When you do speak, keep your volume steady and your tone low but firm. Avoid filler words. End your statements with certainty, not question marks. And don't explain yourself unless necessary. Leaders don't over-justify, they clarify once and move on. The more you explain, the more you dilute your authority. Silence, used right, is not passive. It is presence, it is pressure, it is poise. The world already has enough loud talkers chasing attention. Leaders don't chase attention, they create gravity. And gravity doesn't shout, it pulls. Chapter 5. Composure Under Fire. Pressure exposes what training hides. Anyone can sound confident when things are calm, but leadership isn't measured in calm. It's revealed in chaos. When emotions rise, when people challenge you, when uncertainty hits the room, that's when your communication either collapses or commands. Composure is not about feeling nothing, it's about controlling what the world sees while your emotions are still moving underneath. Leaders don't lose their voice to adrenaline, they channel it. Here's the hard truth. People don't follow the most emotional person, they follow the most stable one. Because stability feels safe, and safety breeds trust. Let's break down what composure under pressure really means. First, you never match chaos with chaos. When someone raises their voice, gets sarcastic, or tries to rattle you, don't respond at their level. Lower your tone instead. The more they escalate, the calmer you become. That dissonance makes you magnetic, because people feel your control. You're not playing the emotional game, you're dictating it. Second, breathe before you respond. Your body wants to react fast, defend, prove, attack. But leadership communication works in delay. That half-second breath between stimulus and response is where power lives. You reclaim the wheel. You speak from choice, not impulse. Third, choose clarity over emotion. When things get heated, emotional speakers try to win by volume. Leaders win by direction. They strip out the emotional static and land on logic. Instead of, "You never listen to me," they say, "Let's pause. This conversation isn't productive in its current tone." You don't mirror emotion, you redirect it. Fourth, tone control beats word control. You can say all the right words, but if your tone shakes, you lose the message. Calm tone under pressure makes people think you've seen worse. It gives your words gravity. So even when you feel frustration, let your tone drop lower, slower, firmer. Let the calm become the weapon. Fifth, respond with posture, not panic. When pressure hits, people fidget. Tapping, crossing arms, rubbing faces. Each movement leaks tension. Train your stillness. When everything feels volatile, plant your feet, relax your shoulders, and hold your space. Stillness tells the world, "I'm not backing down and I'm not flinching." Now let's talk about verbal discipline. Composure isn't silence forever, it's precision in speech. Leaders don't blurt, they don't ramble. They speak in controlled bursts of clarity. In tense situations, one clean sentence can do more than a 2-minute explanation. Try this mental cue: shorter sentences, slower breath, lower tone. It resets your nervous system and reclaims authority instantly. Another crucial factor, separating emotion from energy. Emotion is the story you tell yourself. Energy is the presence you project. Leaders use their energy, eye contact, calm voice, timing, to ground others even while they themselves are managing internal chaos. You can be angry inside and still sound composed outside. That's mastery. And remember this: composure doesn't mean suppression, it means translation. You take raw emotion and translate it into influence. Anger becomes assertiveness, fear becomes focus, doubt becomes precision. That alchemy is what people call grace under fire. When someone pushes your buttons, your calmness doesn't just protect you, it exposes them. People who rely on emotional control games lose their power when you don't give them fuel. Your restraint becomes dominance. In leadership, the calmest voice always wins. When you can stay steady while everyone else is unraveling, people will naturally look to you, not because of a title, but because of trust. They think, if they're calm, maybe we're not in as much danger as I thought. That's influence born from composure, so how do you train it? You simulate pressure, you practice pausing under tension, you rehearse your tone in disagreement. You visualize criticism and learn to stay neutral-faced, slow-breathing, deliberate-worded. The more you rehearse calm in discomfort, the less it surprises you in reality. Composure isn't a reaction, it's a decision made in advance. You decide before the storm that your voice won't rise, your breath won't shorten, and your message won't bend. You cannot control every moment, but you can control your state in every moment. And that control, quiet, poised, unshaken, is what makes people follow you in chaos. In the next chapter, we move into the psychology of listening. How the most persuasive leaders speak less but influence more by mastering the skill most communicators ignore. Chapter 6. The Listening Advantage. Here's the paradox of powerful communication. The best speakers aren't the ones who talk the most, they're the ones who listen the best. Leadership isn't just about being heard. It's about understanding before responding. Most people hear sounds, leaders hear signals. Listening is a weapon. It disarms, reveals, and builds trust without a single word. And yet, almost everyone undervalues it because it doesn't look like power. But here's the truth: people open up to the person who listens, not the one who performs. And the one who understands deepest leads easiest. Let's unpack what true leadership listening looks like and why it changes everything. 1. Listening isn't waiting to talk. Most people don't listen. They reload. They wait for a pause just long enough to jump in with their opinion. That's not listening. That's mental interruption. Leaders do something different. They empty their intention. They don't listen to reply. They listen to decode, to understand motives, fears, emotions, and hidden dynamics. Because every word someone says carries 3 layers: what they said, what they meant, what they're afraid to say. A weak communicator responds to the surface. A leader listens beneath it. 2. Listening builds power. You don't have to announce. You gain more influence by letting others speak than by outspeaking them. When people talk freely, they expose their thinking. They reveal what they value, what they fear, and where they can be guided. Leaders listen like detectives, not like fans. Every sentence gives information, leverage, or insight. And when you finally speak, your words hit harder because they're grounded in what you've already absorbed. Listening isn't passive, it's tactical. 3. Silence is the pressure that makes others reveal. When you ask someone a question, don't rush to fill the silence after they answer. Let it hang for a few seconds. That pause does something psychological. It tells them you're not fully satisfied yet. And people, uncomfortable with silence, will start adding details. They'll reveal more truth than they intended. Great negotiators, interrogators, therapists, and yes, leaders, all use this technique. It's not manipulation. It's space creation. Space invites honesty. 4. Listening changes how people feel about you. When you make someone feel truly heard, they automatically assign you respect, because being listened to is rare. Most people feel invisible when they talk. When you're that person who actually hears them, holds eye contact, doesn't interrupt, asks precise follow-ups, you instantly stand out. Leaders don't just listen to words, they listen to emotion, tone, pace, and energy. They listen for fatigue, doubt, excitement, avoidance. They listen to what wasn't said, the skipped part, the quick deflection, the emotional hesitation. Because leadership isn't only about hearing facts, it's about reading truth. 5. Questions are the tools of listeners who lead. A leader's greatest weapon isn't a speech, it's a question. A question refocuses attention, resets energy, and reclaims control of the room. But the quality of the question determines the depth of the answer. Average questions get automatic answers. Did you finish that? Yeah. Leaders ask questions that invite reflection. What stopped you from finishing that? Which part of this plan do you believe in most? What would you do differently if no one could judge you? Strong questions reveal people to themselves, and they remember the person who helped them see clearer. 6. Listening reframes conflict. When tension rises, listening becomes the anchor. Instead of reacting emotionally, leaders slow things down with curiosity. They say, "Help me understand your perspective. What are you hoping I'll see here? What outcome matters most to you right now?" These phrases don't surrender power. They neutralize chaos. You're not agreeing, you're gathering. You're showing composure and concern while keeping authority intact. That's emotional aikido, turning resistance into revelation. 7. Listening is also watching. Words are just one language. Body language, tone, and micro-expressions tell more truth than sentences ever will. Leaders are fluent in all 3. When someone says, "I'm fine," but their jaw tightens, you don't believe the words. When someone says, "I agree," but their feet point toward the door, you don't take comfort in agreement. You read what their body says, not what their mouth reports. This awareness lets you speak with sharper precision later, because you're responding to what's real, not what's polite. 8. Listening gives you timing. Have you noticed that great communicators always seem to speak exactly when the room is ready? That's not luck. That's listening. They sense energy shifts. They feel when people are open, closed, tired, curious, angry, or afraid, and they time their entry. Leaders don't interrupt emotion, they ride its rhythm. When the room is loud with tension, they let it burn out. When the moment softens, they speak, and it lands. You can't learn that from a script, you learn it by listening. 9. Listening protects you from ego. Ego wants to talk. It wants to prove, defend, dominate, impress. Listening humbles ego. It reminds you that you don't need to perform to hold power. The quiet mind sees more. The loud one misses details. When you listen fully, you stop reacting to perception and start responding to reality. That shift makes your communication strategic, not emotional. 10. Listening multiplies respect. Here's the paradox. The more you listen, the more people listen to you, because your restraint builds anticipation. When you finally speak, people assume it's worth hearing, because you didn't speak out of impulse, but insight. That's how leaders turn silence into gravity. Listening also deepens empathy, and empathy sharpens influence. People don't follow you because you sound smart. They follow because they feel understood. And when someone feels seen by you, they'll move mountains to prove you right for believing in them. The listening mindset. Leadership listening isn't soft. It's strategic. You're not listening to please, you're listening to position. To understand who needs reassurance, who needs challenge, who's holding back, who's leading quietly. Every conversation becomes data. Every silence becomes signal. Every reaction becomes a map. Listening gives you clarity. Clarity gives you control. Control gives you calm, and calm gives you presence. That's the full circle of communication mastery. How to practice it? Start by speaking less in your next conversation. Ask more. Count to 3 after someone finishes speaking before you respond. Watch what they add in that silence. Maintain steady eye contact, not intense, just anchored. Don't interrupt, don't fix, just observe. Then, when you do speak, summarize their point before adding yours. So you're saying the main concern is timing, correct? That single act earns more respect than any long speech. Listening isn't about agreement. It's about awareness. It gives you advantage without aggression, influence without effort, and leadership without demand. Most people talk to be right. Leaders listen to be effective. And when your listening becomes intentional, your words become unstoppable. Chapter 7. The Psychology of Influence. Influence isn't about control, it's about direction. Real leaders don't force people to move. They make people want to move. They shape emotion, not through manipulation, but through alignment. They connect what others need with what must be done. That's the art of influence. At its core, influence is emotional intelligence in motion. It's understanding how people think, feel, and decide, and using that understanding to guide them toward a result that benefits everyone. Here's the truth. People don't follow logic first. They follow feeling. The decision comes from the heart, then the mind shows up later to justify it. A leader who ignores emotion loses the room even if they're right. A leader who understands emotion can steer a crowd with a whisper. To influence, you must first connect. And to connect, you must first respect the emotional reality of others. When people sense that you see them, not just their performance, but their humanity, they open up. And once someone opens up emotionally, they become receptive mentally. Influence always follows empathy. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing. It means understanding without surrendering. You don't absorb their feelings, you acknowledge them. You don't drown in their emotions, you guide them out. That's what people trust. The person who can stay calm in their storm. You can't influence anyone you secretly judge. You can't inspire someone you quietly resent. Energy leaks through tone, so every time you communicate, check your internal posture first. Ask yourself, what energy am I sending before I even speak? Because people feel your energy before they hear your words. Influence is not about louder voices, it's about deeper resonance. When your tone, words, and emotion align, when they come from clarity instead of ego, people lean in without knowing why. That's presence. That's gravity. To master influence, learn how people make decisions. Most choices follow 3 psychological triggers: trust, emotion, and safety. First is trust. Without it, nothing you say matters. Trust is built in small, consistent behaviors. Keeping promises, showing up prepared, listening without agenda, speaking without exaggeration. Every word that matches your action builds credibility. Every inconsistency, no matter how small, erodes it. People listen to those whose words predict reality. That's why your influence starts long before you open your mouth. It begins with your reputation. Second is emotion. People act on what they feel more than what they know. If you want to move someone, don't just give information. Give interpretation. Show them why it matters, how it affects them, what it means to their story. Data informs the mind, but emotion moves the heart. A leader who speaks only to logic sounds cold. One who speaks only to emotion sounds unstable. Influence lives in the balance. Third is safety. Humans resist what threatens identity, ego, or belonging. When people feel judged, they defend. When they feel seen, they listen. Your role as a leader is to create an emotional environment where others feel safe enough to change their mind. Influence isn't about pressure, it's about permission. You create permission for growth by removing the fear of rejection. Now understand this, the strongest influence is invisible. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it flows through calm certainty. When you speak with conviction that isn't aggressive, people sense authority without threat. They feel led, not forced. That's influence through presence, not power. Words shape thought, but energy seals belief. You can tell someone 1,000 reasons why they should believe you, but if your energy doesn't match your message, they won't. When you say, "We can do this," your tone, posture, and eyes must carry the same message. Otherwise, your influence collapses under contradiction. Influence also depends on timing. Say the right thing at the wrong time, and it lands wrong. Leaders listen for readiness before speaking vision. They sense when to challenge and when to comfort, when to push and when to pause. Influence is rhythm, a dance between urgency and empathy. Remember, influence is not manipulation. Manipulation serves self-interest. Influence serves shared purpose. One drains trust, the other builds it. If your intention is clean, your persuasion will feel like inspiration, not pressure. People are influenced most by those who embody what they preach. You can't inspire discipline if you live in excuses. You can't preach calmness if you explode under stress. You can't demand trust if you gossip when doors close. Your consistency is your loudest message. Leadership communication is less about convincing others and more about becoming someone worth believing. That's the foundation of long-term influence. Now let's talk about emotional framing, the way leaders subtly guide meaning. If you frame challenges as threats, people freeze. If you frame them as missions, people rise. Language turns fear into purpose. Instead of saying, "We have a problem," say, "We have a responsibility." Instead of, "I need you to fix this," say, "I trust you to handle this." Every sentence you speak either gives power or takes it. Leaders use words that transfer belief. Here's another secret. People don't remember everything you say. They remember how you made them feel while you said it. So every time you speak, ask yourself, what emotion am I leaving behind when I finish talking? If people leave feeling smaller, you've lost influence. If they leave feeling capable, trusted, and clear, you've won. Influence isn't about big speeches, it's about consistent moments of impact. How you respond in conflict, how you listen in silence, how you guide under tension. Every micro-interaction either deposits or withdraws from your emotional bank with others. The balance of that account determines your influence over time. True influence is patient. You don't demand immediate results, you plant emotional seeds. You speak to people's potential even before they see it. You model belief until it becomes contagious. That's leadership. When your confidence becomes a mirror for their own. And here's the highest level of influence, when your presence inspires change, even when you're silent. When people adjust their tone because you walked in. When chaos calms down because you're in the room. When your calm becomes the new standard of communication. That's not authority. That's alignment. Influence grows from internal peace. The more grounded you are, the more gravity you carry. People feel safe following someone who's not at war with themselves. Your voice has more power when it doesn't fight for attention, it simply deserves it. So don't chase influence. Cultivate integrity, clarity, and composure, and influence will follow naturally. Because the most powerful communicator isn't the one who dominates the room, it's the one who changes the room's energy by entering it. Influence doesn't begin when you speak. It begins when you listen, when you align, and when you embody the calm confidence others crave. The psychology of influence isn't about control over others. It's mastery over yourself. When you can manage your emotion, match your message to your energy, and speak from genuine conviction. That's when words stop being sounds and start becoming movements. And that's when you stop just talking like a leader and start living as one. Chapter 8. Emotional Presence and Command. Leadership is not measured by how loud your voice carries, but by how deeply your presence settles. Before you speak, before you act, before you lead, people feel you. That feeling, that invisible atmosphere you bring into the room, is your emotional presence. And in leadership, presence equals power. When your emotional presence is centered, people calm down around you. When it's scattered, they feel uneasy. You can say the right words, but if your emotional state is unanchored, your influence collapses. Because people don't respond to your sentences, they respond to your state. Presence begins with awareness. Most people enter a room focused on how they'll be perceived. Leaders enter focused on what energy they're projecting. They don't ask, "Do they like me?" They ask, "What emotion am I setting right now?" Because your emotions are contagious. Calm spreads. Chaos spreads faster. The one who regulates their emotion regulates the environment. That's emotional command. Not suppression, not pretending, command. Command means you feel everything, but you're owned by nothing. You can be angry, but not reactive. You can be nervous, but not paralyzed. You can be uncertain, but not unstable. It's emotional maturity in motion. Control without coldness, warmth without weakness. Let's break it down. 1. The first impression is emotional, not verbal. Before you speak a word, people subconsciously scan you. They read your face, posture, breath, eyes, and energy. In half a second, they decide safe or unsafe, confident or uncertain, calm or chaotic. If your inner state is frantic, your outer signals betray you. Presence is felt before it's understood. That's why great communicators prepare their state before their speech. They breathe deeper, they stand slower. They enter with calm eyes, relaxed shoulders, grounded silence. They don't rush to talk. They let the room feel their steadiness first. That's command, the quiet kind that doesn't need to announce itself. 2. Energy speaks louder than volume. You've met people who don't speak loudly but somehow fill the space. That's energy discipline. Their tone carries conviction, not noise. Their silence demands attention, not confusion. They don't try to be powerful. They are powerful because they're not seeking validation. When your emotional energy is clear, your communication doesn't need to shout. Presence is the invisible microphone that amplifies authenticity. 3. Emotional command comes from internal alignment. You can't project what you don't possess. If your mind says one thing, your heart feels another, and your tone does something else, people sense that split immediately. Alignment is when what you say, feel, and mean move in one direction. That unity makes your presence magnetic. To build alignment, check in before key moments. What emotion am I about to communicate? Is this message coming from ego or purpose? When your motivation is clean, your words find their own strength. 4. Leaders absorb emotion without losing themselves. Every environment comes with emotional static, anxiety, frustration, resistance. A weak communicator matches the room's mood. A strong communicator regulates it. They absorb the noise and return calm. When a team is nervous, they project certainty. When tension rises, they lower their tone. They don't mirror emotion, they moderate it. Think of emotional command like being the thermostat, not the thermometer. The thermometer reacts. The thermostat sets the temperature. 5. Your breath is the steering wheel of presence. The fastest way to control your emotional energy is to master your breathing. Shallow breath equals shallow presence. Deep breath anchors you in control. Before you speak, exhale slowly. Drop your shoulders. Let your heartbeat settle. That small act resets your nervous system. It's the difference between reacting and responding. Every powerful leader has a pre-speech ritual, even if it's silent. One deep breath, one grounding pause, one internal command, steady. That's how you walk in charged rooms and still radiate peace. 6. Stillness commands attention. In a world addicted to noise, stillness feels like authority. When you speak, pause deliberately. Let your silence carry weight. The pause tells people, I control the pace. It gives your words shape, it gives your tone impact, and it gives your presence gravity. Stillness isn't absence, it's dominance without force. 7. Emotional presence is amplified through eye contact. When you speak, your eyes are your emotional transmitters. If you dart around nervously, you lose trust. If you stare too intensely, you feel overbearing. Balance it. Look with calm focus, steady, warm, confident. In leadership, people don't follow your words. They follow where your eyes are anchored. Your gaze is the silent proof of your composure. 8. Command requires emotional range, not just control. Control alone can look cold. Presence means you can expand or contract your emotional energy intentionally. You can be light-hearted without losing respect, serious without creating fear, passionate without chaos. Leaders modulate emotion like music. They know when to soften and when to surge. That's emotional rhythm, the pulse of great communication. 9. Repairing emotional presence after disruption. Even great leaders lose composure sometimes. The power is in recovery. When you sense you've lost presence, when frustration, stress, or ego hijacks you, don't fake calm. Reset it. Pause. Own it. I got a bit heated there. Let's reset and continue. That humility reclaims authority. People respect leaders who manage emotion transparently. 10. The legacy of presence. Long after people forget your words, they'll remember how it felt to be around you. Did you make them tense or safe, small or capable, seen or dismissed? That emotional memory becomes your leadership brand. Presence leaves an emotional fingerprint that outlives your message. That's why the best leaders refine not just how they speak, but how they feel before speaking. Because here's the secret: people don't rise to your words. They rise to your energy. Your emotional presence gives them permission to be steady, focused, and brave. Command is not about control over others. It's about mastery over yourself so deeply that others trust you to lead their emotions too. When you can walk into a room of panic and create stillness, that's command. When your calm steadies the uncertain, that's influence. When your silence holds weight equal to your words, that's power. And that's the essence of emotional presence. You no longer chase attention. Attention naturally orbits around your stillness. You no longer perform confidence. You radiate it. You no longer talk to prove. You talk to align. The world doesn't need louder voices, it needs calmer ones. Voices that ground instead of rattle. Presences that heal instead of hurry. Because true command doesn't come from dominance, it comes from depth. And when your depth becomes steady enough, your presence becomes unforgettable. Chapter 9. The authority of tone. You can have the right message, the right data, even the right intention. But if your tone is wrong, everything collapses. Tone is the emotional packaging of your words. It's what people actually hear beneath what you're saying. It's the invisible handshake of communication. And in leadership, it often matters more than the words themselves. Tone is how authority travels. It carries confidence or uncertainty, peace or panic, command or confusion. It tells the listener whether to trust you or to question you, long before logic even begins to process your message. The truth is simple: your tone defines your credibility. People don't just listen to what you say, they feel how you say it, and that feeling becomes their truth. You can tell someone "I believe in you" in two ways. One tone inspires courage, the other sounds like obligation. The words are identical. The tone rewrites their meaning. Tone is leadership made audible. 1. Tone is energy, not volume. Authority isn't about loudness. It's about grounded energy. A soft-spoken person with certainty in their tone can move a room more than someone shouting without focus. True authority vibrates at a lower frequency. It's calm, measured, deliberate. Volume attracts attention, tone holds it. When your tone drops slightly lower and slower, it signals control. When it rises sharply, it signals insecurity or emotional agitation. Mastering tone begins with mastering energy. If your internal state is frantic, your tone will betray it. If your mind is still, your tone carries that stability like an echo. Tone mirrors your nervous system. Regulate your breath, and your tone regulates itself. 2. Tone is the silent command of confidence. Confident tone doesn't demand attention, it assumes it. It doesn't rush, it doesn't plead, it doesn't justify. It simply delivers. Every rushed word sounds like self-doubt. Every calm pause sounds like conviction. That's why great communicators let silence breathe between their words. Because silence, paired with steady tone, amplifies authority. When you slow down, you communicate control. When you rush, you communicate fear of losing attention. Leaders never chase attention, they anchor it. 3. Tone must match message. A mismatch between message and tone confuses people. You can't deliver encouragement with a robotic tone. You can't deliver urgency with monotone calm. You can't offer empathy through sharp rhythm. Alignment between tone and message builds trust. Before you speak, ask, what do I want them to feel by the time I finish this sentence? Then let your tone carry that feeling. When tone and message align, your communication becomes emotional truth. 4. Tone reveals intention. Tone always leaks the motive behind your words. If you speak to prove, your tone hardens. If you speak to connect, your tone softens. If you speak to control, your tone sharpens. If you speak to lead, your tone balances power and warmth. The most trusted leaders sound both strong and soft. Their tone says, I've got this, and I've got you. It's firm without being forceful, empathetic without being weak. Authority in tone is not dominance, it's calm conviction. 5. The power of lowering, not raising. When conversations heat up, everyone instinctively raises tone, volume, speed, pitch. The leader's power move is to lower it. Lower your pitch, slow your rhythm. Soften your words. It tells everyone, I am not losing control. That calm tone disarms tension more effectively than arguments ever could. In moments of pressure, your tone becomes the emotional thermostat. Lowering it lowers everyone else's heart rate. People remember the voice that calmed them in chaos, not the one that joined the noise. 6. Tonal range equals emotional intelligence. Rigid communicators sound robotic because they only have one tone, flat, repetitive, lifeless. But leaders use tone like color. They adjust it with purpose. Warm when connecting, crisp when instructing, measured when correcting, inspirational when rallying. Tone is the bridge between emotion and meaning. The wider your range, the deeper your influence. A leader's voice must be adaptable, able to carry fire or peace with equal grace. 7. The tone of respect. Authority without respect is tyranny. Respect in tone is how you maintain power and dignity. It's how you correct someone without humiliating them, how you disagree without hostility, how you lead without ego. When your tone carries respect, people feel safe around your power. They listen not because they fear you, but because they trust you. Respectful tone sounds steady, not superior. It sounds sure, but never sarcastic. That's the kind of tone that earns long-term loyalty. 8. Tone is felt before it's understood. You can walk into a room, say nothing, and people can tell your tone. It's in the way you greet, the rhythm of your breath, the softness or sharpness in your first few words. Tone is energy broadcasted through sound, and because it bypasses logic, it shapes emotion instantly. That's why tone control is emotional leadership. When you control your tone, you control the emotional climate around you. 9. The tone of truth. There's a certain tone that comes only from authenticity. It's unforced, unpolished, raw but grounded. You can't fake it because it carries the texture of self-trust. That's why the tone of truth feels different. It lands quietly, yet deeply. People may not even agree with your message, but they'll still respect it because it feels real. Truth in tone is magnetic. It doesn't need decoration. It's clean, direct, human. 10. Training the voice of authority. If you want to master tone, you have to practice consciously. Record yourself. Listen not to your words, but to your energy. Do you sound rushed, defensive, detached? Train your delivery until your tone feels calm, certain, and grounded no matter what you're saying. Practice speaking slowly in high-pressure moments. Practice lowering your tone when challenged. Practice replacing trying to sound confident with being clear. Clarity is the loudest confidence there is. When you train your tone to follow intention, your voice stops performing and starts leading. Tone is not decoration, it's direction. It guides the emotional response of every listener before logic ever joins the conversation. Your tone either builds bridges or burns them. When your tone becomes stable, compassionate, and commanding, you no longer fight for authority. You become authority. That's the power of tonal leadership. You speak softly but carry undeniable strength. You give calm where others give chaos. You lead not through words alone, but through the emotional current of your voice. Because when your tone speaks certainty, people stop resisting. When it speaks safety, they open up. When it speaks conviction, they follow. And when all three live inside your voice, safety, certainty, and conviction, your words stop being heard, they're felt. That's the sound of a true leader. Not the loudest in the room, but the most centered. Not the one who demands to be heard, but the one who's impossible to ignore. The authority of tone isn't about power over people. It's about power within yourself, power that echoes through every word, every pause, every silence. Because when your tone carries command, you don't need to ask for attention. It's already yours. Chapter 10. The magnetism of authenticity. You can copy skill. You can imitate posture. You can even borrow style. But you cannot fake authenticity. Authenticity is the one quality that cannot be manufactured. It must be embodied. It's not what you do. It's what you are when you stop pretending to be anything else. The most magnetic people in the world aren't perfect. They're real. They speak from a place that feels raw, human, unpolished, yet strangely powerful. Their presence doesn't scream, "Look at me." It whispers, "This is me." That quiet certainty pulls people in more powerfully than any performance ever could. 1. The energy of realness. Authenticity is energetic honesty. It's when your inner world and your outer expression align. No masks, no filters. People can sense it instantly. They might not know why they trust you, but they feel your words land differently. Because realness has a vibration, a frequency that says, what you see is what's true. When you operate in that energy, you stop chasing approval. You stop editing yourself to fit rooms that were never designed for you. You simply show up, whole, honest, grounded. And that energy commands respect without effort. Authenticity is your natural charisma. It's not taught, it's uncovered. 2. The death of pretending. The fastest way to lose power is to pretend. Pretending to be confident when you're not. Pretending to agree when you don't. Pretending to care when you're already drained. Every time you perform instead of express, your energy fractures. People may not see it, but they feel it. That subtle disconnection between your words and your soul. When you stop pretending, something liberating happens. Your voice deepens, your tone steadies, your presence strengthens. Because authenticity removes friction. It frees you to focus your energy on truth instead of performance. 3. Real is rare. In a world addicted to filters, authenticity feels revolutionary. Everyone's trying to appear more polished, more perfect, more successful than they actually are. And the result is emptiness disguised as achievement. Real people don't have to outshine anyone. Their calm is their power. Their scars are their credentials. Their transparency is their brand. When you embrace who you are, with all your flaws, lessons, and contradictions, you become unforgettable. Because no one can compete with you being you. Realness has no competition. 4. Vulnerability is strength. There's a misconception that authenticity means oversharing. It doesn't. It means being honest without apology. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's exposure with boundaries. It's the courage to say, "This is what I've been through." Not for sympathy, but for connection. When people hear your truth, they see themselves in it. That's why vulnerability breeds loyalty, because it makes your strength relatable. Perfection inspires envy. Vulnerability inspires trust. The leaders who make the deepest impact are those who aren't afraid to show their humanity. 5. Alignment over approval. The authentic person doesn't seek applause. They seek alignment. They don't move to be liked, they move to be true. You'll never find peace in people's opinions, because opinions shift with the wind. Authenticity is your anchor when the crowd changes direction. Every time you betray your truth to gain approval, you trade freedom for applause. But when you stay true to your essence, You may lose followers, but you gain respect, and respect lasts longer than popularity ever could. 6. The magnetic frequency. There's something unexplainable about authentic energy. It attracts the right people effortlessly. It's like a frequency. When you vibrate truth, only those tuned to that frequency can hear your signal. That's why when you're real, you lose some people. But the ones who remain are your people. Authenticity filters your circle. It protects your energy. It builds environments where you no longer have to shrink or perform. The right people don't want the best version of you, they want the real version. 7. The confidence of transparency. The most confident sentence in the world is, "I don't know, but I'll find out." That's authenticity in action. It refuses to fake expertise. It values truth over ego. When you admit what you don't know, people don't see weakness, they see trustworthiness. Authentic confidence is quiet, not boastful. It doesn't need to impress because it's already enough. You become magnetic when your self-worth isn't rented from other people's opinions. 8. Authenticity in leadership. Great leaders lead from truth, not from image. They don't demand loyalty, they earn it through integrity. They're consistent in private and public, calm under pressure, and honest when things fall apart. Authenticity in leadership means owning both victories and mistakes. It's not about always being right, it's about always being real. When you speak from authenticity, your words carry a rare weight. People don't just hear you, they believe you. Because deep down, everyone's tired of acting, and when you show up as your full self, you give them permission to do the same. 9. The cost of being real authenticity will cost you. It will cost you approval from people who benefited from your pretending. It will cost you comfort because truth exposes the lies you once lived in. It will cost you relationships that were built on performance, not connection. But that's the price of freedom. You can't keep your authenticity and your disguise at the same time. You must choose one. And the moment you choose authenticity, life begins to align itself around your truth. Doors close, then better ones open. People leave, then real ones appear. You lose noise and gain peace. That's the sacred exchange of authenticity, subtraction before elevation. 10. Living without masks. Masks are heavy. They drain your energy because you're constantly maintaining an illusion. When you finally take them off, you rediscover lightness, a quiet joy that comes from no longer hiding. The more authentic you become, the less you fear judgment. Because judgment can't touch what's already accepted. You've already made peace with yourself. That's unshakable confidence. Authenticity doesn't seek validation because it is validation. It's the proof that you've accepted yourself fully. Not for who you could be, but for who you are right now. And that self-acceptance radiates power that no performance can replicate. 11. The sound of truth. There's a sound to authenticity. Calm, slow, grounded. It's the sound of someone who doesn't need to convince you, just to express truth. Their voice carries weight because it carries self-trust. When you speak from that place, even silence feels intentional. People listen differently. They lean in, not because of volume, but because of vibe. That's the magnetism of authenticity. It's not noise. It's gravity. 12. Freedom in authentic living. When you live authentically, decisions become clearer. You stop second-guessing because you're guided by integrity, not insecurity. You stop competing because you're walking your lane. You stop pretending because peace feels better than applause. Authenticity simplifies your life. It removes the excess, the pretending, the over-explaining. You realize that the real win is not impressing others. It's not abandoning yourself. That's the freedom of authenticity. You no longer chase what's shiny, you attract what's real. You no longer beg to be understood, you speak truth and let it resonate where it should. And that freedom, that calm alignment with your own truth, is the highest form of power. Authenticity isn't a performance, it's presence. It's how your energy walks into a room before your words do. You can't fake it, and you don't need to. Because when you are authentic, you already have what everyone else is still trying to imitate: peace, confidence, and clarity. So stop dimming to fit in, stop filtering to please, stop pretending to be impressive. You don't need to impress, You just need to express. Because the truth is magnetic, and when you live it, the right opportunities, the right people, and the right peace will find you, effortlessly. That's the magnetism of authenticity. The power to move through the world as yourself. Unapologetically, the power to be seen not for your perfection, but for your truth. The power to be free, finally, fully, and fearlessly.